What if Wylla, the wet nurse, fled Starfall with Jon Snow and raised him as her own until Ned came for him? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. The Dornish sun is brutal on the hills near the Prince's Pass. The tower stands alone in it. No village nearby, no road worth the name. Just red rock and dry brush, and the bodies of 3 men in white cloaks cooling in the dust. Arthur Dane, the Sword of the Morning, lies closest to the base of the steps. His sword Dawn rests a few feet from his hand, pale as milk glass, forged from the heart of a fallen star, lighter than it has any right to be, and sharper than anything Ned has ever crossed blades with. Sir Gerald Hightower and Sir Oswell, Whent have fallen nearby. 3 of the finest knights the realm has ever seen, dead in the dirt outside a forgotten tower in Dorne. Eddard Stark stands over them. He is 20 years old. He does not feel like it. Howland Reed stands a few feet behind him, still catching his breath, watching Ned's back the way he has watched it for the last bitter hour. Both of them are bleeding. Both of them are alive. Ned picks up Dawn. He holds it a moment, feeling the weight of it. A dead man's sword and a dead man's faith, both in his hands at once. He wraps it carefully and goes inside. The stairs are narrow, and he takes them slowly. He can already hear her from below, not crying, but breathing, shallow and quick, the breath of someone working hard to stay in the world. He pushes open the door at the top. Lyanna Stark looks up at him from the bed. She has their father's eyes, grey and quiet. They are the only thing about her that is quiet right now. The rest of her is blood and heat and exhaustion, and something that looks like relief, seeing him come through the door. There is a bundle of cloth on her chest, moving. Ned. Her voice is not much louder than a whisper. He crosses the room and kneels beside her. He takes her hand. He does not say anything, because there is nothing to say about the state of this room that she does not already know better than he does. "The baby," she says. "I see him. You have to take him. You have to keep him safe." Her grip tightens on his hand. "Robert can never know." "Ned, listen to me. Robert can never know where he came from. They will kill him. You know what they did. You have seen it." He has. He thinks of King's Landing and what he found there when he rode through the gates. He thinks of Aelia. He thinks of the children. He does not say any of that. "I'll keep him safe," he says. "Promise me, Ned. I promise." She closes her eyes. The hand in his goes slack slowly, the way a candle goes out, and then she is gone. He stays kneeling there a moment longer than he means to. Then he carefully lifts the infant from her chest before the last warmth leaves her. The boy is small and dark-haired and furious about being alive. He screws his face up and makes a sound that is too weak to be a cry, but too insistent to be anything else. Ned wraps him tighter in the cloth and stands. He is Rhaegar's son. He carries the blood of the dragon and the blood of the wolf, and he will be dead inside a fortnight if Robert Baratheon learns he exists. Robert hammered Rhaegar into the Ruby Ford and called it justice. He may not have been wrong, but the man who comes out the other side of that kind of war is not the kind of man who sees a baby and stops swinging. Ned knows this with the same certainty he knows anything. He has to get this child away from Dorne, away from anyone who might recognize what he is, and he has to do it while telling no one why. The ride south and west takes 2 days. Howland rides with him as far as the road forks, and then turns north, back toward Greywater Watch, carrying nothing with him and the weight of everything he has seen. Ned rides on alone, with the infant wrapped to his chest and Dawn strapped across his back. The boy sleeps most of the way. When he is awake, his eyes catch the light in a way that is purely grey, the grey of overcast sky, of river stone, of a winter morning. Already, even now, there is something watchful about them. At the mouth of the Torrentine, where the river meets the summer sea, Starfall rises from its island, all pale stone and sea wind. The Palestone sword tower stands tallest, pointing straight up into a sky that has nothing to say. The gates open when they see him coming. The household assembles in the yard to receive him. They have heard, or some version of what happened at the Tower of Joy has reached them already, and the grief is already on every face. No one speaks first. Ned asks for the wet nurse. A woman comes forward from the back of the group, small, dark-haired, careful in the way of someone who has always moved through the world at other people's convenience. Wylla. She has served this house for years, the kind of servant who becomes part of the walls without anyone deciding it. She takes the infant from Ned's arms without a word and holds him to her, and there is nothing hesitant about it. She simply knows what to do with a newborn, and she does it. Ned passes Dawn to the steward. He does not look at the sword when he lets go of it. He asks for Ashara Dane. The steward pauses, then tells him quietly that the Lady Ashara has been in the Palestone sword tower since the news arrived. She has not come down. She has asked not to be disturbed. Arthur was her brother, the steward says, as if Ned does not know this. Arthur was her brother, and Elia Martell was her mistress, and now both of them are gone, and the sword is back on the wall where it always used to hang, and there is nothing to put back in anyone's hands. Ned nods. He tells them he will need the night. He will take the child north at first light. He goes to see to his horse and finds something to eat and put his back against a quiet wall for a few hours. When he returns to the courtyard in the grey before dawn, Wylla is gone. The infant is gone with her. He stands very still in the empty yard. The torches are burning down to stubs. A cat crosses the far cobblestones and vanishes through an archway. The river makes its sound against the stone below the walls. Everything is exactly as it was an hour ago, except that the only thing he came here to protect is missing, taken by a woman whose name he has not yet had reason to use as a lie. The courtyard is empty. The torches have guttered down to stubs. Ned stands in the dark and counts what he knows. Wylla was here. The infant was here. Now neither is here. He turns back inside and calls for the steward. The household does not know where she went. This is what he determines over the next 2 hours, working through the castle in the grey before dawn. The cook did not see her leave. The stablemaster reports that no horse was taken, no mule, no cart. The gatekeeper slept. She left on foot in the dark, or by some route no one watched, and no one has an explanation. Ned does not raise his voice. He asks his questions in the same measured tone he uses for everything, and the servants cannot tell whether he is desperate or merely thorough. Both are true. He does not have the option of revealing which. The castle is in grief. Arthur Dane died 4 days ago, and the household has been managing mourning and the arrival of their lord's killer in the same terrible week. They did not watch the wet nurse because there was no reason to. She was staff. She had been staff for years. She was in her room when they last checked, and now she is not. He finds Illyria Dane in the great hall, Arthur's youngest sister, sitting in a chair by the cold hearth with her hands folded and nothing behind her eyes. She does not know where Wylla would go. Wylla was a servant, not a companion, she says, in a voice that sounds far away. That Wylla came from the hills west of the Torrentine, years ago, but she cannot say where exactly, or whether Wylla still had people there. Ned thanks her. He goes to find the steward. He has been at it 2 hours when the screaming starts from the direction of the Palestone Sword Tower. He does not run. He moves quickly because running looks like panic, and he cannot afford this household to see him panic. But by the time he reaches the base of the tower, the screaming has become something quieter and worse. The low grief sound of people who have found what they were afraid to find. Ashara Dane has gone into the summer sea. She left no word. The window at the top of the Palestone Sword Tower stands open, and she is not in her room, and the water is far below. One of the household women found the window open, called out, heard no answer, and then understood. Ned stands at the base of the tower and looks up at the open window for a moment. The sea wind moves through it. He thinks of the woman he never met properly, Arthur's sister, who had been lady-in-waiting to Elia Martell, who had lost something at Harrenhal years before the rebellion even started, who had been carrying too much for too long. He had been in Starfall 5 days, and she had stayed in her tower the whole time, and now she is in the sea. He turns away. 2 Danes gone in 1 week, Arthur dead in the Hills of Dawn. Ashara carried away on the tide, no body to bury. The household is not managing anymore. The grief here is too large for management, and Ned is standing inside it with a problem he cannot name to anyone. He goes to the courtyard and sits on the steps and thinks it through. What he knows: Wylla has served this house for years and has no family in Starfall. She came from somewhere in the hills west of the Torrentine. She left on foot at night with only the infants swaddling. No horse, no coin that anyone knew of. She is somewhere in Western Dawn with a newborn. What he does not know: why she ran, what she understood about the child, whether the child is still alive, the constraint that binds everything. He cannot search for her openly. Robert Baratheon is king. Robert has already been told, or will be told, that Ned Stark fathered a bastard on a Dornish woman named Wylla during the war. This is the story Ned will tell, because the truth is that the infant is Rhaegar's son. And Robert hammered Rhaegar into the Ruby Ford, and Robert had Elia Martell's children killed at the sack of King's Landing, and Robert would do the same to this boy without hesitation. So Ned cannot put a raven in the air across Dawn. He cannot tell any man why the child matters without explaining what the child is. If he hunts Wylla in the open, urgently, with men and resources, he is a lord chasing a woman he bedded, and the attention that raises is the same attention that gets the boy killed if it reaches the wrong ears. The constraint is brutal and total. The secrecy that protects the child is the same thing that makes finding him nearly impossible. His silence is both the shield and the chain. There is no version of this problem where he can be fully free of it. Not now. Perhaps not ever. Every year the boy grows older and further from Starfall and harder to explain, and the lie grows older with him. He goes inside and finds the steward. He needs 2 men who know Western Dawn, who can move without drawing notice. The steward produces them. 2 old soldiers, careful men, past the age of ambition. Ned speaks to each one alone. He tells them what Wylla looks like and what the infant looks like. He tells them to say nothing to anyone. He tells them to report back through a channel he names and no other. He gives them coin and tells them to take their time. It is the best he can do. He goes to the great hall and looks at Dawn on the wall, pale as milk glass in the torchlight, forged from the heart of a fallen star, waiting where it has always waited for a Dane worthy to take it up. There is no sword of the morning now. There may not be one in Ned's lifetime. The sword will wait. It has waited before. He has been here 5 days. He cannot be here 5 more. Robert is king. The North needs its lord. Catelyn is at Winterfell with an infant son, Robb, born the same year as the child Ned cannot find, which is a thought that presses against the inside of his chest like a stone. He cannot stay. He cannot explain where he has been or what he was searching for. He rides north before the sun clears the eastern hills. The lie goes with him, a woman named Wylla. He does not speak of her. He is not proud of what was done. The boy is with her now, and will come north when he can be brought north. The name is Wylla. That is all there is. He will say it to Robert when Robert asks. He will say it to Catelyn. He will say it to anyone who presses him, and the silence he keeps around it will be thick enough and deep enough that no one finds the edge. He rides north out of dawn with 2 dead Danes behind him, 2 old soldiers listening for whispers in the hills, and an empty place where the promise used to feel like something he could keep. Winterfell is exactly as Ned left it. The same grey walls, the same smoke from the great chimneys, the same smell of hot springs and cold stone that has meant home since he was a boy. The gate opens for him, and the household comes out, and it is everything returning ought to be, except that he is returning empty-handed and alone. Catelyn Tully Stark meets him in the yard. She is 19 years old, and has been running his household and nursing his heir and holding Winterfell together while he fought a war, and she does all of this without making him feel the size of what he owes her, which is the kind of grace he does not deserve right now. She looks at him, and then past him, a quick scan of the escort, and then back at him. "I heard you had business in the south," she says. "I did." She waits. Ned goes inside. That evening, when the house is quiet and Robb is asleep, she asks him directly. There was talk of a child, a woman in the south. Ned sits with that for a moment, and then he says, "Her name is Wylla. She is a servant woman. The child is mine. He will come to Winterfell when I have been able to locate them." Catelyn looks at him for a long time. Her face does not change. She says, "Very well." She does not ask again that night, or the next, or the one after that. She does not enter this subject again at all, but the cold that settles between them over it will last longer than the conversation does. Ned knows it. He can see it happening, and he cannot stop it, because stopping it would require telling her the truth, and the truth would travel further than he can afford. In the morning, he goes to see Robb. The baby is wrapped tight and squinting at the light with the focused displeasure of the newly born, already dark-haired, already with a look about him that is all Tully, all Catelyn. Ned holds him for a while, and thinks about another boy, his age to the day, somewhere in the hills of Dawn, being held by hands that are not Ned's. The 2 of them were born in the same year, probably within weeks of each other, and one of them is in a warm castle with his mother, and the other is somewhere Ned cannot find him. He does not say any of what he is thinking. He passes Robb back and goes to deal with the business of the North. Robert Baratheon sends word within the month. A raven from King's Landing. Come when you can. Ned rides south. Robert is as Ned has always known him. Larger than every room he enters, louder than the space requires, and genuinely glad to see him in the way that he is genuinely glad about most things, which is warmly and without great depth. He has a crown now, and a queen, and an iron throne that he rules from the way a man sits in a chair that does not quite fit him. He embraces Ned the way men embrace who have survived a war together, which is completely and without apology. They drink together. They talk about the realm hall and the new peace. At some point in the evening, Robert leans back in his chair and says he heard something. About Ned. In the south. During the war. Ned waits. A woman, Robert says. A child. He watches Ned the way he watches everything, directly, without much patience for subtlety. What was her name? Wylla, Ned says. Robert studies him for a moment. He is a man of considerable appetites himself, and he does not judge other men for theirs. But he has known Ned Stark since they were boys, fostered in the Eyrie together, and he can see, right now, that this is not a conversation Ned will continue. Just Wylla, Robert says. Just Wylla. Robert nods and reaches for his cup. He does not ask again. He has hundreds of conversations in any given month, and this one slides into the archive of things he does not push Ned about, of which there are very few. It is almost too easy. The ease of it sits with Ned all the way back to Winterfell. Benjen Stark is 16 and waiting for him when he arrives home. He is his sister Lyanna's brightness dimmed, quieter than he used to be, useful with horses and with his hands and with his grief, in the way young men learn to be useful with grief by turning it into work. He finds Ned in the stables and says, without greeting, "Where is the boy?" "There is nothing to tell yet," Ned says. "You were in Dorne. You came back without him." Benjen is watching him carefully. Something is wrong. When there is something to tell, I will tell you. Ned does not stop moving. He has already decided this conversation is not happening, the way he decides certain conversations are not happening, by simply proceeding as if they are not. Not yet. Benjen lets him go. He is a Stark. He knows how to hold a thing and wait. But Ned can feel the question on him all week, and all the week after, and he is grateful every time Benjen keeps it to himself. The search begins again in earnest. Ned works through a household steward who has served Winterfell for 20 years, and who understands discretion the way old servants understand all things, completely, and without requiring explanations. The inquiry goes south as a quiet thing. A servant woman who left House Dane service without notice, travelling with an infant. The child is wanted by House Stark. No further explanation. No further questions asked. The answer comes back in silence. The two men in Dorne have nothing. Ned waits. On a night when the house is sleeping, he goes to the godswood and sits in front of the heart tree. The carved face looks back at him from the white bark, its cut eyes weeping red in the torchlight. He sits there for a long time before he speaks. He tells the old gods, the boy is gone. He promised Lyanna. He promised her with her hand in his, and her last breath coming slow, and he has failed the promise before the year is out. The infant is somewhere in the west of Dorne, being raised by a woman who ran before she understood what she was running with, and Ned is here at Winterfell with a lie and a search that has produced nothing. The heart tree does not answer. The godswood is very old and very quiet, and the wind through it carries nothing useful. He sits there a long time. The boy is alive. He tells himself this with the same conviction he tells himself everything he needs to be true. Plainly, without flinching. Because the alternative does not bear looking at. Wylla is not cruel. She ran from fear, not from malice. She is not going to harm the child. And people help women with infants. People are not, in most places, as brutal as war is. The boy is alive. Ned has the lie in place. He has time. He goes back inside before the first light comes, and starts again. The years pass, the way years do in the north, in snow and mud and harvests, and the work that does not stop for either. Robb Stark grows. He walks before his first name day, early and with determination, hauling himself upright on the furniture the way small children do, as if standing is something the world owes him and he intends to collect. He talks not long after, and then he does not stop talking, and by the time he is 2, Catelyn has to apologize to the masters for the interruptions he causes during their morning lessons. He has a wooden sword by the time he is 3. He has opinions about its weight. He is loud and confident, and full of the certainty of a boy who has no doubt about his place in the world. And watching him, Ned feels a pride that is genuine and uncomplicated, in a way that very little else in his life is right now. And underneath the pleasure there is always the same thing. Ned watches Robb swing a wooden sword in the yard and feels it like a stone turned in a wound, somewhere in the west of Dawn or the Reach borderlands. Another boy is learning to walk, to talk, to ask questions of a world that does not know what to call him. The same age as Robb, the same dark hair, if the fragment from 2 years ago meant anything. And Ned does not know if he has enough to eat. He does not know if Wylla is managing. He sends his quiet inquiries south every season, and every season the answer comes back the same. Nothing. The search is harder than it would be if he could simply explain it. A different man in a different situation could put a reason behind the question, could tell someone in authority, I need this woman found, and here is why. Ned cannot do that, so he searches the way a man searches for something he cannot name, slowly and obliquely and through borrowed eyes, and the trail grows colder every year that passes without news. He rules the north. He attends to his lords and his harvests and his roads. He keeps peace with the mountain clans and sends men to the Night's Watch when the Watch requests them, which it does with increasing frequency. He is warden of the north, and he does this work as he does all his work, completely and without complaint. One inquiry in every several that goes south has nothing to do with crops or roads or the governance of a great northern house. Word from King's Landing comes in the shape of rumor and report. Robert Baratheon has been king for 4 or 5 years now, and the nature of his kingship is clarifying with time. He is a man built for war, who is now required to govern in peace, and the distance between those 2 requirements is visible in everything his court sends north. He drinks more than is wise. He holds tournaments when he should be holding councils. He has married Cersei Lannister, which is Tywin's political victory as much as Robert's, and the court runs on Lannister patience and Lannister gold, and the uneasy peace that follows when the largest creditor is also the most powerful man within the city walls. Robert's hatred of the Targaryen name is not a rumor. It is the most consistent thing about him, more consistent than his council appointments, or his tournament schedules, or his moods. Daenerys and Viserys are children still, small, far away in Essos, moving between whatever hosts will shelter them. They are watched. Robert has not forgotten they exist, and there is nothing in the world that would make him forget. Every report Ned receives from the capital carries this fact somewhere inside it, in the same tone as all the other fixed truths of the new kingdom. The sun rises in the east, the wall stands in the north, and Robert Baratheon will kill any Targaryen he can reach. Ned hears this in every letter, and holds it against the boy in the hills. The calculation is not complicated. If Robert feels this way about Aerys's 2 small children, who have no army and no stronghold, and who are simply the wrong blood, then what Robert would do with knowledge of a 3rd child, this particular 3rd child, is not a question that requires imagination. The boy cannot be found by the wrong person first. He must be found by Ned first, quietly, before anything else happens. This is not a preference or a strategy. It is the only way the child does not end up dead. In approximately the 5th year after the divergence, a fragment arrives. Ned's inquiry, routed through 3 pairs of careful hands, returns a description. A common woman seen in a village near the Western Reach border. Travelling with a boy of perhaps 3 or 4 years. Dark-haired, the 2 of them, which is common enough in that part of the world. But the boy's eyes were grey, according to the man who saw them, the pale grey of river stones in winter, and you did not often see that on a Dornish woman's child. Ned cannot go himself. Not in the middle of winter, not with the north requiring his attention, not without drawing the kind of attention that would be worse than no attention at all. He sends his most careful man south instead, with instructions and coin and the request for patience. His man returns in the spring. The woman is gone. She left the village some time before winter. No one can say exactly when or where she was heading. She paid for nothing, said nothing, gave no name to anyone who would speak to a stranger asking after her. She took the boy, and she left. And there is nothing to follow. Ned sets the report down on his desk and goes to find something to do with his hands. A raven arrives from Starfall that same season. House Dane wishes to inform the lords of Westeros that its household has welcomed a son, a boy named Edric. Mother and child are well. Ned reads this twice. He thinks of Wylla, who should by rights be in that castle right now, who should be nursing this child and the dark-haired boy beside him, the 2 of them sharing her milk and growing up together in the shadow of the Polystone Sword Tower, calling each other milk brothers the way boys do when the bond starts that early. In the canon of the world as it was before Wylla ran, that is exactly what would have happened. Edric Dane and Jon Snow would have had that. Instead, Wylla is somewhere in the Western Hills. Edric Dane has a different nurse, and the connection that should have existed between those 2 boys will never form. That is the world that did not happen. He puts the raven with the others. He does not sit with clean possibilities for long, because they do not help. The search continues. Robb runs in the yard with a wooden sword. Somewhere, a boy who looks exactly like him does not know his own name. The Greyjoy Rebellion comes in 289 AC, and it does not ask whether Ned's search can afford the interruption. Balon Greyjoy raises his standard on the Iron Islands and declares himself king of a free people, and the Iron Fleet burns Lannisport. And for 6 years the search for Wylla and the infant has produced only fragments and silence, and now Ned has to set even the fragments aside and go to war again. He fights for Robert. He fights in the cold rain on the shores of Fair Isle and through the siege of Pike, and when it is done and the Greyjoys have bent their knees and the fleet is ash, he comes home the way he always comes home from wars, quietly, with the business of returning still ahead of him, and another stretch of years burned through. He is 27 years old when he rides back through Winterfell's gates. Robb is 7. Somewhere the other boy is 7 too, living whatever life Wylla has managed to build. The message comes 2 months after his return, while he is still managing the North's recovery from a campaign season. His man, the one who has been listening in the Western, reaches for years, sends word through the channel Ned established before Robb could walk. A woman matching the description has been living in a small settlement in the hills east of the Manda, near the old Reach border road. She has been there a year or more. She has a boy with her. The boy is 7 or 8 years old. He is called Wylla's boy. He has dark hair and pale eyes. Ned reads the message twice. He puts it down. He picks it up and reads it again. He goes to find Catelyn. He tells her he has personal business in the south. He tells her it may take some weeks. He does not say more, And Catelyn does not ask, because over the past 7 years, Catelyn has learned what it means when Ned rides south with a small escort and says nothing. She is the Lady of Winterfell, and she has managed Winterfell through 2 of Ned's absences, and through his war, and she has made her accommodations to this marriage that does not explain itself. She says, "Be careful." He says, "I will." She looks at him with the particular expression she reserves for matters involving the South and the name Wylla, which is the expression of a woman who has decided not to throw herself against a door she knows will not open. He rides south with 4 men, and no explanation. The settlement takes 3 weeks to reach. It is not a village exactly, just a cluster of buildings where a hill road curves around a stand of old oaks, the kind of place that starts as a wayfarer's stop and becomes permanent, because people keep deciding not to move on. There is a stable, a wayfarer's house, a well, and some structures that have grown up around those things over the years. Ned comes in from the northern road in the early afternoon, with the hills behind him, and stops his horse at the edge of it. He sees the boy before he sees Wylla. The boy is in the yard beside the stable, working with a length of rope at something that requires attention. He is small for 7, with the thinness of a child who has always had enough, but never more than enough, and his hair is dark and cut short and uneven in the way of children whose haircuts happen when someone has the time and the right tools are not available. He looks up at the sound of horses. Grey eyes, dark as river stones in winter, the kind of grey that reads almost as black until the light catches them directly. And the face below those eyes, even at a distance, has the long lines and the serious set that Ned knows from mirrors and from the faces of his own kin. The boy is looking at Ned with the watchful stillness of someone who has learned to assess a situation before he reacts to it, and he is doing this assessment now, quietly, with no particular fear and no particular welcome. He is Lyanna's son. The Stark blood in him is so clear, it is almost painful to look at. He looks nothing like the silver-haired, purple-eyed prince who was his father. He looks like he was carried out of the grey hills north of Winterfell and set down 3,000 miles away from where he belongs. He looks at Ned and doesn't move, and Ned stays still for a moment too, because he has been looking for this boy for 7 years, and he is not entirely ready for what it feels like to have found him. Then Wylla comes out of the wayfarer's house, and everything becomes practical again. She stops when she sees the horses. She sees Ned, and she goes very still, and in that stillness Ned can read the whole 8 years of it, the flight, the settling, the long work of becoming invisible in a place where no one asks questions. She does not run. Perhaps she considered it. Perhaps she knew years ago that she was done running the day someone found her. She says something to the boy, quiet and brief, and he takes himself inside without protest. Ned dismounts. He crosses the yard. "My lord," she says. She does not flinch. "Wylla." He stops a few feet from her. He has been thinking about this conversation for years, about what he would say when he finally stood in front of her, and now that he is here, it seems simple. "Why did you run?" She is quiet for a moment. "You were going to take him. He was mine to take. I know that. I knew it then." She is not defensive about it. She speaks as someone giving testimony, plainly and without embellishment. "You came to Starfall with a newborn who needed milk, and I nursed him for 2 days, and I knew you were going to take him with you when you left. I panicked. I did not plan it. I picked him up in the dark, and I left, and I kept going until I thought I had gone far enough." "How far did you think was far enough?" I kept thinking just one more day, one more valley, and then he was 6 months old, and then he was a year old, and then it was too late to undo. What do you mean, too late? She looks at him directly. I had a lord's property, and I had run off with it like a thief. Every day I kept him made it worse. I did not know how to go back and explain myself. So I stopped trying to go back and I raised him instead. Her voice does not break. He is a good boy. He is very good. I want you to know that before anything else. What have you told him? That his father might come for him someday. She says it simply. That is all I knew to tell him. I didn't know who he was. You never told me anything. You handed him to me and told me to nurse him. I only knew you were a northern lord and that you wanted him nursed. I did not know why he mattered so much until you were gone. Ned looks at the door the boy went through. He thinks of Lyanna. He thinks of the promise that has been 7 years in the keeping. His name is John, he says. Jon Snow. Wylla is quiet for a moment. Then she nods, as if the name is something she has been holding space for, a word-shaped gap in everything she knows about this child, finally filled. When do we leave? She asks. We need to speak first, Ned says. About what happens next. Wylla brings him out in the late afternoon. The boy stands at the edge of the yard and looks at Ned with those grey eyes, and Ned looks back, and neither of them says anything for a moment. The yard is quiet. The stable hands have found business elsewhere. The air smells of horses and hay and the dry dust of the hill road. This is my Lord Stark, Wylla says. She does not explain further. She has explained enough, inside, before she brought him out, and the boy's face says he has absorbed the explanation and is now conducting his own assessment. He is smaller than Ned expected, though there was no reason to expect any particular size. He has the lean look of a child who moves through the world carefully and watches before he commits to anything. Dark hair, cut short, grown out unevenly at the neck. Grey eyes that study Ned with a patience that is not a child's patience, exactly, but the patience of someone who learned early that patience is a useful tool. A long face with the stark lines in it, clear as water, a face that would not look out of place in the crypts under Winterfell. Are you my father? The boy says. Ned looks at him. He runs the calculation one more time in the space of a breath. The truth, and what the truth costs, and what the lie protects. He is looking at Rhaegar Targaryen's son, at Lyanna's son, at a boy who has never had a name, and who is owed a name, and who cannot be given the true one. He is about to claim Rhaegar's son as his own bastard, and this is the only kindness available to him, and he will do it for the rest of his life. Yes, Ned says. The boy considers this. He does not react with great emotion. He nods, the way someone nods when they receive information they have been holding space for, and are now filling in. Why did you not come sooner? I looked for you every year. Wylla said you might come one day. He says it without accusation, without inflection, as someone reporting from outside his own feelings rather than from inside them. She said it was not certain. She was right to say that. I did not always know where to look. A pause. I am sorry it took as long as it did. The boy receives this without comment. He has Lyanna's intensity, the quality Ned remembers in her, that directness, the sense of a person who has already done the emotional work before they open their mouth. But there is something else in him too, something quieter, a gravity that comes from spending 7 years in a world that had not decided who he was yet. He has had to be self-contained. He has made himself self-contained the way people make tools from what is available. Will I go with you? he asks. Yes, to Winterfell, in the north. Wylla told me about the north. He looks at Ned steadily. She said it was cold and the people were serious. She was accurate on both counts. The boy does not smile, but something shifts at the edge of his mouth. He nods once and goes back inside, which is how Starks accept things they have decided to accept, without ceremony, without fuss, forward. Ned finds Wylla in the Wayfarer's house when the boy is gone. What follows is the most difficult conversation of a difficult day. Ned tells her plainly, the boy goes north with him. She cannot come. There is no story that explains what she would be in Winterfell that would not raise questions he cannot afford to have raised. He will see that she is provided for. Coin, a place to settle, whatever she needs. Wylla does not accept this quietly. She has had this child for 8 years. She did not intend to become his mother. She took him in a panic and found herself inside the role before she understood it was a role, and by then she was too far in to find her way back out. She tells Ned all of this. She says she understands that he is the Lord and the child is his, and the law says what it says, and she is going to tell him anyway that taking a 7-year-old boy from the only mother he has ever known is a cruelty, even if it is also a right. Ned listens to all of it. He does not dismiss it. He says, I know. And then he says again, the boy has to come north. Wylla asks if she cannot at least come partway, accompany them a while on the road. Ned says no. She asks if she can write to him, if she can know how he is. Ned says he will send word when the boy is settled, and he means it. And she can hear that he means it. The conversation goes in a circle once more, and then Wylla stops fighting it, not because she has been persuaded, but because she is a practical woman who does not spend herself on battles she has already lost. He will be all right, Ned says. I will see to it. He is careful, she says. He does not show his feelings, but he has them. He holds things still inside. It worries me that he holds so much still. Ned says nothing. He knows where the boy learned that. That evening, when the others have eaten and the light has gone low and amber, Ned sits with Jon and tells him his name. Jon Snow. A Stark bastard's name, the name that goes with the dark hair and the grey eyes and the long, serious face. Jon receives it the way he receives everything, as information, taken in and turned over honestly. Jon Snow, he says. Yes. Not Wylla's boy. Not anymore. He is quiet for a moment, looking at the ground. Is it mine to keep? It is yours. It is who you are. Something settles in his face. Not dramatically. The boy does almost nothing dramatically. But Ned can see the name finding its place, fitting into the space that has always been shaped for it. That night, Jon goes to find Wylla. Ned sits outside in the cooling dark and does not follow. He looks at the hills and thinks of Lyanna in the tower room, and about whether she would think he has done enough. He is not sure. The boy is alive. The promise is being kept. He is not sure that is the same as enough. Jon comes back after a long time. His face is as still as it always is, but his eyes carry the shine of tears already shed and finished with. He sits across from Ned and looks at his hands. She told me to remember that she loved me, he says. Good, Ned says. I told her I know. He is quiet. I do know. I have always known. Behind the closed door of the Wayfarer's house, Wylla is weeping, the way people weep when they have held something back for years and have finally run out of reasons to keep holding. It is the first time she has wept over him in 8 years. It will not be the last. John looks up at Ned. His eyes are steady again. He has done his grieving, and he is done with it, or he has put it where he puts things he isn't done with, but cannot hold in public. Either way, the face is clear. "When do we leave?" he asks. "At first light," Ned says. John nods once and does not say anything more. He lies down on his bedroll and closes his eyes, and within a few minutes his breathing slows into sleep, the sleep of a child who has learned to rest when rest is available. Ned sits awake a while longer. He thinks about the road north and about Catelyn at Winterfell, and Robb, and the life this boy is about to be dropped into without preparation. He thinks about the questions John will ask on the road, and the answers he can give, and the answers he cannot. The promise is being kept. The boy is alive. Tomorrow, he goes home. They ride north out of the hills in the early morning, John on a horse that is a size too large for him, but which he manages without complaint, and Ned's 4 men behind them. The road turns north, and the land opens up, and John takes all of it in with the same quiet attention he gives to everything. He has never been north of the Reach borderlands. He has never seen a castle. He has never seen winter, only the pale, cool season that passes for it in the south, and the north is still weeks away. All of this will come, and Ned watches the boy watching the landscape unfold around him, and thinks that he has never seen anyone so still on the outside and so busy on the inside. John asks about everything he does not recognize, which is most of what he sees. He asks the names of the rivers they ford and the hills they pass through, and the names of the stones the road is paved with in some stretches, and the name of a bird he has not seen before. He does not ask frivolously, or for the pleasure of hearing himself talk. Each question has the quality of a thing he intends to file away and keep. He is building a picture of the world he is about to enter, one named piece at a time. "What is Winterfell like?" he asks on the second day, when the road has straightened. Ned considers how to answer this. It is old. Very old. Built over hot springs, which means it is warm even when everything outside it is not. There are 2 curtain walls and a great keep and towers and a godswood with a heart tree at the center of it, a weirwood with a face carved into it. He pauses. And beneath it, the crypts. The crypts, where the lords of Winterfell are buried, going back thousands of years. Kings of Winter, they were called, before the Targaryens came and changed the names of things. The oldest ones are so old no one remembers who they were. There are stone statues of them in the dark, with iron swords across their laps. John is quiet for a while, turning this over. "Will I live there?" "Yes," Ned says. "You will." The boy nods and looks at the road. He asks, "Can you see the crypts?" Ned says yes, he will take him down when they arrive. John says he would like that. He says it the same way he says everything, without enthusiasm and without reluctance, simply as information about what he wants, stated clearly. On the 3rd day, he asks about his mother. They are climbing a low ridge where the horses have slowed to a walk, and the morning is quiet around them. John says, not looking at Ned, "Wylla was not my mother." Ned's hands tighten on the reins. "What makes you say that?" "She told me she loved me." John keeps his eyes on the road. "I believed her. But she also told me I was someone's son who mattered. She did not mean I was hers." A pause. "She meant someone else's. So who was my mother?" "Her name was Wylla," Ned says. John turns and looks at him. The grey eyes are steady. "That is not what I asked." Ned looks at the road ahead and thinks about what he can give this boy and what he cannot. He says, "She was a good woman. She could not keep you, and she knew she could not, and she wanted you safe. And those are the things that matter about her. He pauses. It is all I can tell you now. When you are older, there may be more. Will there be more? Someday, Ned says. John is quiet for a long time, long enough that Ned wonders if the conversation is finished. Then, all right. Not happy about it, not resigned to it, simply acknowledging it, putting it away, moving on the way he moves on from everything that cannot be changed in the present. He will not ask again today. The narrator knows he will ask again. He rides well for 8 years old, not gracefully, but with the dogged application that is his answer to everything. He grips a little too hard with his legs and holds his back too straight, braced against the horse's movement rather than with it, his whole body working harder than it needs to in order to be precise about the thing he is doing. Ned watches him from the corner of his eye and thinks of Lyanna, who could ride from the time she was 6, who moved with a horse as if they shared a spine and a thought, who was wild in the saddle in the way that wild means free. John has none of that wildness. John rides the way he does everything, with deliberate effort, trying to be exactly right about every part of it. He is, Ned realizes with a small, uncomfortable clarity, watching himself at 8. The same effortful correctness, the same refusal to let the body do anything without the mind's full supervision. Lyanna used to tease Ned about how he rode. She said he sat a horse like a man, terrified of making a mistake. John rides exactly that way. Lyanna would have found it either funny or frustrating, and she would not have been wrong on either count. He does not say any of this to the boy. On the 4th evening, camped beside a stream with the hills dark around them, Ned tells John what he will find at the end of the road. "My wife," he says. "Her name is Catelyn. She is the Lady of Winterfell. She is a good woman and a fair one, and she manages the household well, and the people of Winterfell respect her." He looks at John across the fire. "She did not know about you before you were born. She did not know where you were while you were growing up. Your arrival will not be easy for her." He waits for the boy to look at him. "I need you to understand that and be respectful." John looks back at him. The grey eyes are very level. "Does she want me there?" Ned says, honestly. "She will accept you." John hears the space between those two answers. He is 8 years old, but he has spent 8 years listening for exactly this kind of space. He nods and looks at the fire and does not ask again. "And there is Robb," Ned says. "My son. He is exactly your age. He was born the same year you were. He is the heir to Winterfell." "Not me." "No. You are my bastard son, and the law is clear. The castle and the lordship and everything that goes with them are Robb's. But you will have a place there. You will train and learn and be part of the household. It will be a real life, with everything that means." John looks at the fire for a while. He says, "What is Robb like?" "He is 8 years old, and he is certain about everything," Ned says. "He will want to know everything about you immediately, and he will have opinions about all of it." John almost smiles. It is so small a thing that it is barely visible, just the faintest shift at the corner of his mouth. But it is there. "I am good at finding a place," he says. "In a new place, with people I do not know yet. It is something I have done before." "I know," Ned says. "I have been watching you do it from a distance for 7 years. John looks at him. Something moves behind the grey eyes, something he does not put into words. But he does not look away either, and the fire burns between them, and North is still many days away, and they have the road to fill with this, The careful words and the careful silences, and the slow work of becoming known to each other after years of being strangers on the same continent. Winterfell rises out of the northern landscape like something that has always been there, which it has, longer than most things that can be said to have always been there. The curtain walls are enormous, two of them, one inside the other, built from the same dark grey stone as the hills behind them, and above the outer wall the towers rise, and above the towers the sky is the particular heavy white of autumn in the north. Jon rides through the gate and looks up and goes very still. He has been told about this place for weeks. He has asked careful questions and filed away the careful answers and built a picture of it in his mind. The picture and the reality are not close to each other. He looks at the walls and the towers and the great keep beyond them and says nothing, which is how he handles things that are larger than he expected. "It is bigger," he says finally. "Yes," Ned says. "It is colder. It will be colder than this." Jon looks at the towers a moment longer and then rides forward. The thing to do with a gate is to ride through it. So he does. The household has assembled in the yard, grooms and stewards and servants who have worked here for years, who know the rhythms of this castle, and who now look at this dark-haired boy riding in beside Lord Stark with the quiet attention of people who understand that something has changed. Ned nods to them and tells Jon to wait and goes inside. Catelyn Stark stands at the far end of the great hall. She is 28 years old, and she is composed in a way that has been maintained through years of managing a large household and a marriage that did not always give her what she had reason to expect from it. She has auburn hair and blue eyes, and the bearing of a woman from a strong house who has spent nearly a decade making herself indispensable to a different strong house. She watches Ned come through the door, and she watches the boy come in behind him, and she holds the boy's gaze for a long, careful moment. She has known for 8 years that there was a boy. Now there is a boy in her hall. He has Ned's colouring, the dark hair and the grey eyes and the long, stark lines of the face. She had wondered, privately, whether she would be able to look at him without seeing whatever Ned had been, wherever he had been, in the south. She can. He is just a child. A small, serious child who is looking at her with grey eyes and a face that does not give much away, standing still in the way that children stand still when they have been told to be on their best behaviour. "Jon," she says. One word. Correct. Courteous. Nothing more than is necessary. "My lady," he says. He holds her gaze. He does not shift or fidget. He simply stands there with the patience of a child who has learned to wait without needing the waiting to end. She does not move toward him. She tells a servant to show him his room and see to anything he needs, and she is correct in every word and movement, and she does not touch him. Robb finds Jon before the servant reaches the stairs. He comes around a corner at a run and stops when he sees a boy he does not know, and he looks at this stranger the way 8-year-olds assess people, directly and without embarrassment, taking the measure of him from head to foot and back. "Are you Jon?" he says. "Yes," Jon says. "I am Robb." He extends his hand. It is the gesture of a boy who has been taught how men greet each other. "My father said you were coming. I have been waiting." Jon takes his hand and shakes it. He looks at Robb's red-gold hair and his blue Tully eyes and sees immediately what anyone would see. This boy looks nothing like him, though they share a father. Jon does the math without expression and does not comment on it. "He told me about you as well," Jon says. Robb says, "Are you hungry? Are you tired? What is it like in the south? Father would not tell me anything. He said it would keep. "It is hot," John says, "and flat." Rob nods gravely, as someone nods when receiving information that confirms what they always suspected about a place. Something settles between them in that handshake and these first words. Not friendship yet, but the suggestion of it, which is the part that lasts. At the evening meal, Benjen Stark sits at the far end of the long table and looks at Jon Snow. Benjen is 24, and he has his own version of the Stark look, the dark hair and the watchful grey eyes. And he sits there eating and watching this boy, and watching the boy's face, and the way the boy carries himself, and something will not leave him alone about it. He has known Stark children all his life. He knows what one looks like in the face and in the bone. He puts down his cup and looks across the table at Ned. Ned's face gives him nothing. Not a shift, not a flicker. It is the face of a man who has been maintaining something for 8 years and knows exactly when to be still. Benjen holds the look for a moment, and then he picks up his cup again and goes back to his food. He says nothing. He is a Stark. He files the thing away. When the household is asleep, Catelyn finds Ned in the solar. She closes the door. She says, "He is here now. I will not be unkind to him. I want you to know that." She looks at Ned levelly. "But I will not pretend this is something other than what it is." "I am not asking for that," Ned says. "I am asking only that he be treated decently." "He will be." She is quiet for a moment, looking at the fire. Then, "Who is his mother?" "Truly?" "Wylla," Ned says. The name lands in the room the way it always does when he says it to her, like a door being shut from the inside. She holds his gaze a moment longer, and then she nods, and she leaves, and the matter is closed for tonight. It will not stay closed. It never does. But tonight, it is closed. Jon cannot sleep. He lies in the room they have given him, a real room with stone walls and a proper bed frame and furs, and listens to Winterfell making its sounds around him, the old stone settling, the wind, the distant sound of the hot springs moving through the walls. He gets up before the 4th hour and pulls on his boots and goes out. The Godswood is not hard to find. He follows a passage, and then a yard, and then a gate, and then he is among the trees, old and close together, the ground soft underfoot. He has never seen a weirwood. The heart tree stands at the centre of the Godswood, pale as bone, enormous, its leaves red even in the dark. The face carved into it looks at him from across the clearing, 2 eyes and a wide mouth cut deep into the white bark, ancient work. Done so long ago, the cuts have healed around their edges. Red sap runs from the eye sockets in slow trails, dark against the pale wood. Jon sits in front of it and looks at it. He does not pray. He has no god to send prayers to. The 7 were Wylla's gods, and she never pushed them on him, and the old gods belong to the Starks, and he is not yet sure what he is. He simply sits with the tree in the cold dark and lets the carved face look at him. Something about the stillness of it is not uncomfortable. He has spent his life learning to sit still inside difficult things. The tree seems to be doing something similar. He is here. This is Winterfell. He has a name. He stays until the cold has fully found him, and then he goes back inside, and this time he sleeps. The raven arrives on a wet morning in the 2nd week of Jon's life at Winterfell, and it says, "Robert Baratheon, first of his name, king of the Andals and the first men, is riding north to visit his old friend, Lord Eddard Stark." Ned reads it twice. Then he sets it down and looks out the window at the grey autumn sky for a while. He has been afraid before. He was afraid the night before, the assault on Pike, and the morning before Fair Isle, and the day at the Tower of Joy, when he stood in the Red Hills and heard Lyanna still breathing behind the door. He is not a man who frightens easily. But what settles in his chest reading this, Raven, is something specific and cold, the particular fear of a man who has kept a secret carefully for 8 years, and can now see the moment where careful may not be enough. Robert has never seen Jon. Robert knows nothing except a name, Wylla. He accepted the name 8 years ago, and has not pushed against it since. He is a man who respects the doors Ned chooses to close. But Robert is not a fool, and he has blue eyes that miss less than they seem to, and he has ruled a kingdom for the better part of a decade, and now he is coming north, and Jon is here. Ned begins preparing the boy the next day. He finds Jon in the yard where he and Robb have been at their practice, and he sends Robb inside and sits on the fence and looks at the boy for a moment. Jon sits beside him on the fence without being asked. It is a small thing, but Ned has noticed it. The boy takes whatever shape is available and settles into it without fuss or performance. Jon looks back at him, waiting. "The king is coming," Ned says. "Robert Baratheon. He is my oldest friend. He will want to meet you." "What do I tell him?" "Your name, that you are my son. If he asks about your mother, you say her name was Wylla, and you never knew her. If he asks about Dorne, or where you were raised, you give him short answers. You do not add things he has not asked for." Ned pauses. "Jon." Jon looks at him. Robert is a man who hates certain things with his whole heart. You are going to stand in front of him and give him no reason to look at you closely. Do you understand me? The boy is 8 years old, and he is already old enough to feel the shape of a thing, even when he cannot see all of it. He nods. He says, "I will be careful." "Good," Ned says. "That is all I need." Robert arrives 3 days later. He comes into the Winterfell yard like weather coming in from the sea. He is 29 years old, and not yet the man he will be in 10 more years of feasting and hunting and finding other things to do besides govern. But the direction is already visible. He is powerfully built, broad in the shoulder, with a great black beard and black hair and blue eyes that take in everything at once. He dismounts and crosses the yard and embraces Ned with the force of a man who has never learned to do anything at half volume. "Ned," he says, "7 hells it is good to see you. You look like the North is eating you alive." "You look exactly the same," Ned says. "I look magnificent." Robert claps him on the back and looks around the yard with the satisfaction of a man surveying something that belongs to someone else and approving of it. "Winterfell. I forget how old it is. Every time I come, I forget." He turns to the household assembled to receive him, stewards and guards and servants, and Catelyn, whom he greets warmly, and Robb, at whom he looks with the uncomplicated delight of a man who genuinely likes children and shows it. Then his gaze moves to the darker, quieter boy, standing 1 step behind and slightly to the left of Robb. Robert stops. He looks at Jon the way he looks at things he is working to place, with his full attention, taking his time about it, not bothered by the silence it creates. Jon stands still under the scrutiny with his hands at his sides and his eyes level. He is doing what Ned asked. He is being careful. "This is the bastard, then?" Robert says. "Yes, my lord," Ned says. "Jon Snow." Robert keeps looking. He takes in the dark hair and the grey eyes, and the long, serious face, and the boy's complete stillness under examination. He is looking for something, or looking without knowing he is looking, the way a man sometimes notices a thing he cannot name. He will not find what he is almost searching for. Rhaegar Targaryen had silver hair and violet eyes, and a quality of brightness that people spoke of years after his death. Jon has none of those things. Jon has the stark colouring, the dark hair and the grey eyes, and the long face of the North, and there is nothing here for Robert to catch on if he tried. The lie holds because Lyanna's blood won the argument in the boy's face. Jon Snow, Robert says, registering the name. Not warmly, not coldly. And then he moves on, and the yard moves with him, and Ned allows himself one quiet breath. That evening, Robert drinks. He sits across from Ned with a cup that is never empty for long, and talks the way he talks when he is comfortable, which is freely and at length and roughly in the direction of a point he will reach eventually. He talks about the realm. He talks about lords who are giving him trouble. He does not talk about Cersei warmly. He talks about his sons and a tournament he is planning, and about hunting in the Kingswood last autumn. At some point, the way Robert's conversations always turn eventually, the talk reaches the Targaryens. They are still out there, he says, the girl and the boy, in Essos, moving between cities, looking for some fool willing to fund a fleet for them. He says it with the flat certainty of a man who has been watching something for years and has come to his conclusions about it. Children, paupers, no army, no stronghold, no friends worth the name. He drinks. I sleep better, knowing they are that far away. Distance is the best wall. He looks at Ned. You agree with me. It is not quite a question. They are far away, Ned says. Exactly. Robert seems satisfied by this. He has always been good at hearing agreement in whatever Ned says, which is one of the things that makes these evenings manageable. They will stay far away, and if they ever stop being far away, there are men whose job it is to make them far away again, permanently. He says this without particular relish, as a man states a policy he has already decided on. It is the most frightening thing he says all evening, and he says it lightly. I am not worried, Ned says. He looks at his wine. He thinks about the yard this afternoon, and about the moment Robert's eyes moved to Jon, and the long examining pause before Robert moved on. He thinks about how close that was to something he has been afraid of for 8 years. Not close enough to matter, but closer than he would like. He does not say any of this. Robert drinks, the fire burns, the evening passes and the lie passes with it, and Jon Snow sleeps safely in Winterfell. It is Benjen who comes to Ned, not the other way around. They have been circling it for months. Ned can feel it the way you feel weather before it arrives. A certain quality of attention in Benjen's silences at the evening meal, the way his eyes track Jon across the yard during training, the small pauses that occur when the boy's name comes up in conversation. One morning in the late winter of 292 AC, when Jon has been at Winterfell for a year, and Robb and Jon have become the pair that they are, inseparable and complementary in the way of boys who find they think alike without planning to, Benjen knocks on the door of the Solar and says, "Will you walk with me?" They go to the Godswood. It is the only place in Winterfell where a private conversation stays private, and both of them know this without having to say it. They grew up inside these walls. They know which passages carry sound, and which corridors have listeners, and which servants have made it their livelihood to know what the Lord knows. The Godswood keeps what is said inside it. It always has. The ground is frozen, and their boots make no sound on it. They walk for a moment in the cold, with the bare trees around them, and the heart tree ahead. I need to ask you something, Benjen says, about Lyanna. Ned keeps walking. He does not say anything. The boy, Benjen says. Where did he come from? Truly. I told you, years ago. Wylla. a servant of House Dane. I was in Dawn. You told Robert that, Benjen says, and you told Catelyn that. I was not asking what you told Robert and Catelyn. Ned says nothing. He looks at the heart tree. I have been looking at Jon Snow for a year, Benjen says. He is not raising his voice. He says it the way he says everything. Level, careful, with the weight of the words left to do the work themselves. I know what a Stark looks like in the face and in the bone. I know what Lyanna looked like. I know what her eyes looked like, and what her jaw looked like, and what her face looked like when she was thinking through something she had not decided yet. And I have been watching this boy for a year, and I cannot stop seeing it. He pauses. I was 16 when she died. I know what you looked like when you came home from Dawn. I know what grief looks like on your face, and I know what it is covering when it is covering something too big to say. No bastard, however much you loved the woman who bore him, would have put that kind of grief on you. They reach the clearing. The heart tree stands ahead of them, pale and still. Ned stops. He considers lying. He is good at it now, better than he ever thought he would be. 8 years of the same story, told to the same people and to new ones, and the lie has worn smooth the way a stone wears smooth in a riverbed. It would cost him nothing to give Benjen the same words he has given everyone else. But Benjen is his brother, and Lyanna was Benjen's sister. She belonged to both of them. Ned has been carrying this alone for 9 years, and Benjen has been carrying the loss of her separately for the same 9 years, without knowing what he was carrying or why it felt like more than a sister's death ought to feel. Ned does not say anything for a long time. The silence does the work. He can feel it behind him. Benjen going still, the understanding arriving the way understanding does when you have been standing at the edge of something for a long time and you finally see what is below. Ned does not have to speak. The silence has already spoken. Ned, Benjen says, very quietly. Her mother was Lyanna, Ned says. He does not say the father's name. He cannot say it here, in this place, in front of the old gods, as if naming it out loud would make it more true than it already is, and he does not know how much more of its truth he can carry. He says only what he says, and he waits. For a long moment, Benjen does not speak either. Then, is he safe? As long as no one knows. Who knows? You, Ned says. Howland Reed. And me. Another silence. Then Ned turns around. Benjen's face is doing something that has no clean name for it. He has Lyanna's brightness in him, and it is not gone. But it is under pressure right now, compressed by the weight of what he has just been given. He is 25 years old, and he has been carrying the grief of his sister for 9 years. And now he understands that the grief has a boy's face, and grey eyes and dark hair, and it trains in the yard every morning and sits at the long table every evening, and he has been looking at it for a year without knowing what he was looking at. He looks like her, Benjen says. His voice is steady. He does not let it not be. Yes, Ned says. Her eyes, the way her face goes when she is deciding something. He looks at the heart tree. Not at Ned. I thought I was imagining it. You were not imagining it. Benjen is quiet for a moment. Then he looks at Ned directly, and what is in his face now is not grief or anger, but the particular expression of a man who has made up his mind about something and is saying it before he can overthink it. Then I will help you keep it, he says. Benjen, she was my sister too. He shakes his head, not in refusal of Ned, but in refusal of anything that might argue with the decision he has just made. I have been carrying this since I was 16, not knowing what it was I was carrying. Now I know. That does not change what needs to be done. It just means I understand why. Ned looks at his brother. He says, "Thank you." Benjen nods. He looks back at the heart tree. "I have been thinking about the wall," he says. Ned waits. "I have been thinking about it since she died. Since you came back, and I knew there was something you could not tell me, and I did not know how to live in the space that left." He keeps his eyes on the weirwood. "There is nothing for me here that does not remind me of her. Every corridor, every meal, every time it snows. And now there is also the boy, who is another kind of reminder, a living one that looks at me with her eyes, which is both something and nothing, and I cannot tell yet which it is more." He pauses. A man who needs to stop living inside his own head has options. The wall is one of them. Ned does not argue this. It would not be honest to argue it, and it is not his argument to make. The Night's Watch is an honorable life, and a hard one, and a purposeful one, and it gives a man who needs to put himself in service of something larger than his own grief a place to do that. Benjen has needed something for 9 years. "When?" Ned says. "In the spring," Benjen says. "After the thaw. I wanted to know about the boy before I left. I wanted to understand what I was leaving behind, what I was keeping faith with, from a distance. I am glad you asked. I am glad you answered." Benjen looks at him. Something in the look is very old, the way brothers look at each other when they have been through the same losses and understand each other's silences. "Keep him safe, Ned." "I will." They stand for a moment in the God's Wood, in the cold, with the heart tree between them, and 9 years of carried grief, and a secret that now has one more keeper. The old gods do not speak. They never do. But in the God's Wood at Winterfell, silence has always been answer enough. Jon Snow has been at Winterfell nearly 2 years, and in that time he has learned several things. He has learned the castle, the passages and towers and the hot springs beneath the walls that keep the air warm, even in the deep cold of winter. The ways through the kitchen that avoid certain members of the household staff. The back route from the armory to the God's Wood that does not pass the Master's Tower. He has learned these things in the same way he learns everything, systematically, quietly, by paying attention until what was unknown becomes known. He has learned to fight. Not easily, not naturally, but through the kind of work that looks like grinding from the outside and feels like grinding from the inside. He is not the most gifted boy in the yard. There are others who have the reflexes, the instinct, the physical ease that makes a sword feel like an extension of themselves. Jon doesn't have that. What he has is the capacity to be bad at something for a long time without giving up. He loses in the yard. He goes back. He loses again. He pays attention to why. He is better at it every month, in the incremental way that looks unimpressive next to natural talent, and is, in the end, the thing that usually lasts longer. Ned watches him train from the walkway sometimes, and thinks, yes, that is how. Catelyn does not watch him train. She is not cruel to him. This is what Jon has decided to hold to, and he holds it without bitterness. She is not cruel. She is correct with him. She speaks to him when she must. She ensures he has what he needs in the way of clothing and food, and the Maester's lessons. She is the Lady of Winterfell, and she manages the castle fairly, and she includes Jon in that management the same way she includes every other person who lives inside the walls. She does not reach for him. Not physically, not in the small ways a woman reaches for the children in her household when she is fond of them. When Robb has a fever, Catelyn sits with him. When one of the other boys in the yard scrapes himself badly enough to matter, Catelyn appears, briefly, with the right words and the right gestures. With Jon there is none of that. He does not expect it from her. He simply notices it the way he notices everything, quietly, without announcing it, and files it away as information about the world he is living in. He has Wylla's warmth in his memory and Catelyn's correctness in his present, and he knows the difference between them, and he does not pretend one is the other. He has Robb. They are inseparable in the way of boys who find each other's company self-replenishing. They do not run out of things to do together or say to each other. They simply continue from one task to the next. They sneak through the castle after dark to see what Winterfell looks like when most of it is sleeping. They have a game that involves getting from the south gate to the Godswood and back without being seen by any of the night guards, which neither of them has ever fully won. Robb does not think about the bastard distinction when they are together. He thinks about it when adults remind him. In the careful way adults remind children of rules they want kept. Jon sees the shadow of it cross Robb's face in those moments. He knows what it means. He does not hold it against Robb, who did not invent the rules and has the decency to look uncomfortable when he is made to use them. The distinction is real. Jon has always known it. He is a bastard, and the North has rules about bastards, and those rules do not care that he and Robb were born in the same year, or that they move through the castle as if they are the same rank, because between themselves they have mostly decided to act as if they are. The rules will matter more when they are older. Jon knows this. He is simply choosing to spend the time he has now the way it is best spent, and not getting ahead of himself about what is coming. The distinction is simply not the most real thing between them right now. In the autumn of his second year at Winterfell, Jon comes to the Godswood at night with a question he has been carrying for a long time. Ned is already there, which Jon expected. Ned comes to the Godswood the way some men go to a sept, with the regularity of someone who needs a place to set things down. Jon sits across from him in front of the heart tree. The carved face looks at both of them with the same patient, ancient attention it gives to everything. "I know Wylla was not my mother," Jon says. Ned looks at him. "What makes you say that?" "She told me she loved me when we said goodbye." He says it directly, looking at the heart tree rather than at Ned. "I believed her. But she also told me I was someone's son who mattered. She did not mean I was hers. She meant someone else's. Someone for whom keeping me was worth what it cost her." Ned is very still. "I have been thinking about this for 2 years," Jon says. "I think I know some of it. I think you cannot tell me all of it yet. But I would like to know something true." Ned looks at the weirwood. He looks at this boy, his son who is not his son, whom he claimed and will claim for the rest of his life, because there is no other way the boy survives. He says, "I cannot tell you everything. Not now. When you are older, when the time is right, there is more." He pauses. "But I will tell you this. Your mother was someone I loved. Someone who mattered more to me than I can tell you yet. And before she died, she made me promise to keep you safe. I have been keeping that promise since the day you were born." Jon looks at the heart tree. He is quiet. "Am I in danger?" he says. "Not if no one knows what you are," Ned says. Jon thinks about this. He turns it over, the way he turns everything over, methodically, without visible emotion, working through it until he has reached the conclusion. Then I will not ask again until you are ready to tell me." "Jon, I mean it," he says. "I can wait. I am good at waiting." He looks at Ned directly, with the grey eyes that have their own kind of patience in them. I trust that there is a reason. He says good night. He stands and walks back into the castle. He does not look back. He has the Stark way of things, this boy. Decision made, and then forward, without looking back and complicating the moment. Ned sits in the godswood for a long time. He thinks about Lyanna in the tower room, with the blood around her, and her hands losing warmth, and about what he swore on that last breath of hers. He thinks about Wylla, who ran because she panicked, and raised this boy for 8 years in the hill country, without understanding that what she was raising would one day carry the weight of a secret large enough to topple a kingdom. He thinks about Rhaegar Targaryen, who is bones at the bottom of the Ruby Ford, who died at the Trident believing himself the prince that was promised, who never knew that the son he made with Lyanna had lived, that he was in the world at all. The boy is alive. That is the sum of it. Whatever else is true, Jon Snow is alive, and he is at Winterfell, and he has a name and a brother, and a future that does not end with Robert Baratheon finding out what he is. The old gods watch and do not answer. The red sap on the heart tree is very still. That is enough, Ned thinks. For now, that is enough. A year passes, and then part of another, and Jon Snow turns 10 at Winterfell. In the same season, the North settles into its first real winter since his arrival. He is reliable with a sword now. Not the best in the yard. Robb has a natural aggression that serves him well in a fight, and there are older boys in the household who have been training longer. But Jon is no longer someone anyone gets an easy result from. He works the way he has always worked, by paying close attention to what goes wrong and doing it again until it goes less wrong. The household has settled into him the way water settles around a stone, without fuss or announcement. The servants know his name. The guards nod to him in the passages. He is Lord Eddard's bastard, and he has been here long enough that no one marks it any more, which is the thing about an uncomfortable truth. If it stays long enough without being challenged, it becomes part of the air. The lie has been absorbed into Winterfell. That is the word for it. Absorbed. One afternoon in the early cold, when the breath shows white in the yard, Jon and Robb stand side by side with bows in their hands and a target at the far end of the practice ground, and they are 10 years old, and they are boys. They are competing for the center of the target, which neither of them has hit yet today, and they are competing in the way they compete at everything, directly, without self-consciousness, and with significant amounts of commentary from both parties. Robb hits the outer ring and declares it close. Jon says it is not close. Robb says it is closer than Jon's last shot. Jon says that Jon's last shot also hit the outer ring, and is therefore exactly as close, which means neither of them has any advantage. Then Jon draws back and lets fly and hits the center. The yard is quiet for a moment. Robb stares at the target. He looks at Jon. He says, "Again." "I won," Jon says. "Again," Robb says. "That was luck." Jon looks at the target. He looks at Robb, and something happens in his face that has not happened in this story until now, not in a way that anyone could see. The grin. Full and sudden, the grin of a boy who has been holding himself together for 2 years in a new place and has just beaten his brother at archery and intends to enjoy it for exactly as long as Robb will permit. "Again," he agrees. Robb grins back. They knock another arrow each, and the afternoon continues. That evening, Catelyn finds Ned in the Lord's solar. She closes the door and sits across from him in the chair she always takes, and she looks at the fire for a moment before she speaks. She has been thinking about what she wants to say, and she does not preamble. "The boy," she says. Ned waits. He is not what I expected. She keeps her eyes on the fire. When I thought about him, before he came, I expected a child who would push at the edges of his situation, who would want what Rob has and not accept what he was told he could not have. She pauses. He does not do any of that. He never has, Ned says. No. A silence. He is careful. He is respectful. He does not take what is not his or ask for what will not be given. She looks at Ned. I want you to know that I see it. Thank you, Ned says. She nods. She looks back at the fire. It is not forgiveness, and Ned doesn't mistake it for forgiveness, and she is not offering it as such. It is the quiet accommodation of a woman who is too intelligent to refuse to update when the evidence requires it. She is not soft toward John, and she never will be, but she is not unjust, and she has looked long enough to see what is actually there. He accepts what she has given him, and doesn't push for more. News of Wylla arrives 2 weeks later by way of a traveling merchant heading north, who carries it as ordinary news, the kind that moves because someone mentioned it in a room, and it traveled from there. A woman named Wylla, a common woman, is living quietly in a settlement near the Torrentine in the west of Dawn. She is well. She keeps to herself. She has no children of her own. The news reaches Ned through a steward who thought it might be of interest, without knowing why. Ned reads it and puts it on the desk and says nothing for a while. She is well. She has no children of her own. She is out there somewhere, west of the hills, living the life she built after the life she did not mean to build was taken back from her. He is glad she is well. He does not have a better word for what he feels than that. He goes to the God's Wood at dusk. The cold has come fully now, the first deep winter in years, and the God's Wood has the quality of stillness that cold gives to old places, a stillness that feels like the cold itself is holding its breath. He sits in front of the heart tree and looks at the carved face in the failing light. The red sap has slowed in the freeze and sits in the grooves of the eyes, very still, rust-colored against the pale bark. He says her name. He says it quietly, to the tree, to the old gods who have been listening to the Starks say things to them in this place for thousands of years. Lyanna. He is quiet for a moment. The cold settles around him. Then he tells her, the boy is here. He is well. He trains in the yard, and he beats Rob at archery, and he sits in this God's Wood, sometimes the way Ned does, without praying, just sitting with the silence. He is a Stark in his bones, whatever else he is in his blood. He is safe. He does not know what he is yet, and that is the way it needs to stay. The promise is being kept. The carved face does not answer. The red sap is still. The God's Wood holds what it is given without comment, the way it always has. Ned sits for a long time. Jon Snow is 10 years old. He is the bastard of Winterfell, son of Lord Eddard Stark and a servant woman named Wylla. And that is the story everyone tells and everyone believes, because it is the story Ned built carefully out of the only materials he had. A name, a silence, and the unbroken word of the most honorable man in the 7 kingdoms. He does not know his mother's true name. He does not know his father's. He does not know what happened at the Tower of Joy, or why a woman who loved him ran with him across half a continent, or why the man who claims him has been lying to the world about him since the day he was born. He knows his sword work and his brother's habits and the back routes through Winterfell and the way the God's Wood feels at night. He knows he is where he belongs, even if he does not yet understand why. Somewhere in the west of Dawn, near the Torrentine, Wylla lives quietly and has no children of her own, and sometimes thinks of a grey-eyed boy growing up at Winterfell, becoming whatever the North will make of him. She made herself into his mother without intending to. She gave him back without being asked. She carries the loss of him the way she carries everything, as a fact, without drama, because there is no other way to carry what cannot be put down. The promise has been kept, twice, by two very different people, for 8 years, across the length of a continent. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the 7 kingdoms and beyond, then please like,